Hey guys, so I wanted to go over how to fix this error in our tests where we have already has an action or active connection. So before we jump into just the details of how to fix that, I want to talk about Redis real quick. So I have Redis up and running right now, and whenever you shut this down, it actually creates a little thing called dump.rdb. And this is something I would actually recommend going into just your git ignore and ignoring that. So I'm going to do that right now. And the reason for that is it's just like a dump of Redis and what your current state of your database is, or Redis store at the time when you close it, so it can restart and have all the data of before. But it's not recommended to have that in your Git. Alright, so let's go ahead and fix this error. So at first I thought this error was getting caused by this create typeorm connection being created multiple times. So the first thing that I did to try this out, try to fix it, was to say const, and we'll say, well, not const, let, and this is going to be connection, and we'll say connection is equal to that, and then just after all, calling close on it. So after pretty much all the tests are done running, we're just going to say connection.close. And I'm going to make this the type connection. So that's coming from typeorm. And I like to have my absolute imports first, so I'll move it up there. Okay, so this does not fix it though. And we can see, I don't know if it ran again, but I can just run it myself and see what happens. It should give us the same error. So let's see what happens. So it runs fine the first time. It's whenever we make a change. So let's say I get rid of the semicolon, save it, and it reruns. So what I found out was the real problem was start server. So basically we would start the server up again even though we already have the server started. And the reason for that is in our setup over here. So we call setup, and we're basically just calling setup multiple times. So one approach would be to try to close the connection that we create in here. So we're creating a connection somewhere in here. There it is. And closing that whenever we're done. But something that I got to work that was quite simple was just in our call setup function, just to check if we've already created the server. And to test whether we created the server, we can just see if the environment variable that we set was created. So here I'm going to say if we don't have test host, then go ahead and set up. And if we go to our setup function, we know in setup, we start the server and we set the environment variable test host to this value. So we're just checking if that has not been, initialized yet. If it hasn't, go ahead and set up. If not, we're good to go. So now, when I yarn test, it seems to handle this better, and now we can make as many changes as we want to our test, and it just reruns them, and now it reruns them really fast, which is really cool. And we'll see that. So alright, so green, we passed it, get rid of the semicolon, save it, reruns, and it works fine. So that's all we need to do to fix that. Alright, so the next thing that I wanted to do was actually to move this test out of here. So this test right here really doesn't have anything to do with this function, create confirm email link. It really is just testing the capability of this code right here. So really I want to split up this code into its own file and then test it over there. So I'm going to create a new folder, which I'm going to call, I guess, routes. And inside routes, I'm just going to put all my REST endpoints. So this is one REST endpoint for confirm email, and I might have other ones for like OAuth and other things that we do later. So I'm going to say confirm email.ts. And I'm just going to copy this, paste it over here, make it a function, and actually I should just copy this whole async part. There we go. And 9 down. Okay. So I'm going to say const confirm email, and I'm going to export this. Alright, so now I just need to import some things to get this to work. So the first is, I guess we need to specify the types of these. So I want to just copy whatever the types of them here are. So we can look at him, that's a request, and that's a response. So let's say request, and that's a response. And params does not exist, so why does it work over here? Probably because it's a different type of request than the request that I have here. So let's see, I want to get request from express, perfect, and response from express as well. And okay, so it looks like it's complaining because we do not have express in our package.json, even though we're using it. We're using it indirectly through GraphQL Yoga, and I just wanted to see if I could put this. Doesn't look like I can. I'm just going to go ahead and add this guy as a dependency. Yarn add express. I don't think this will really change our bundle size or anything because we're already using express under the hood, and now we'll have this. And I guess actually really what I should be installing is the types for it, for express, which should then have what we need for that. Okay, so the other thing is the user. We can import that. And then lastly is Redis. So we now need to have an instance of Redis here and an instance of Redis in start server. Now I don't want to, with Redis, basically create multiple instances of this. So I'm going to just create a file called Redis, which I then import from everything. Okay, so I'm now creating one Redis instance in this file, and we can copy io_redis over here. And now I'm just going to import Redis wherever I need to use it. So I need to use it here, so I'm going to import it. Oops. Doesn't like autocomplete's not liking it right now. I guess, I just need to save it probably. Nope. We'll just import it the hard way. Import Redis from /Redis. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing in confirm email over here. So import Redis from up Redis. Okay. So I'm now happy with confirm email. Let's go ahead and create confirm email.test.ts. And we're going to just go, I think it's utils. This is what I want to test. And I think just fetch is what I need to import. Oops. I want to go back to that test. There it is. So I need this. And I think that's it. I think this file is good. And then over here in this, I don't need to describe. I just need a single test. We might add describe back later if I end up testing this more, but I'm pretty happy with this single test for the confirm email link. And so I'm good with this test. Confirm email over here is good. So now my start server, instead of using this, I'm going to call the confirm email function. Okay, and I guess we don't need that anymore. So let's go ahead and run the tests, and now we should have 3 different tests running. And it might even run the register test right now because we made changes to start server and some other things. We'll see what it does. Alright, so it's running. Okay, cool. So it ran both of them. Perfect. Create confirm. Didn't look like it ran register, but that's okay. I can push A if I want to run all of them. And we can see we passed all 6 tests. Nice. Okay, so next thing that I wanted to do is I'm happy with all that other stuff. Inside of our modules register. So our resolver, right now we have this create confirm email link. Ideally we send this in an email, and I don't think I'm actually going to implement that right now. I might implement this at a later date, but it's going to be different depending on the project that I work on, because I feel like depending on the project I might use a different email client. I might use MailChimp or something else, and then send the email different ways. I might do different templates with different designs and whatnot, but it'll be very easy to add because we have this logic. I might change my mind and go ahead and show you guys how to send the emails too, or we might just do that when we actually do a project. But that's the last part really to do with register, is to just actually send the email here. So the next part we're going to work on is logging in. And before we can start working on logging in, I want to get our types. So before, inside types, we have this guy, schema. So this thing is pretty much broken right now. And what I mean by broken is the way we created it was with this gen schema types, where we would run GQL to TypeScript and it would generate that for us. But this no longer works because we used to have a single schema to GraphQL, and we no longer have a single schema.graphql. We have multiple, and we stitch them together, right? If we look at start server, we're stitching them all together. So what we can do is that same utility has a very nice one called GQTS from a schema. So we can just pass it the schema that we stitch together and then create the types from it. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. Now, before I go on with this, multiple of you guys have mentioned there are pretty nice libraries out there called, I believe, TypeGraphQL or Vesper, which allow you to do kind of the same thing, where you get types for your GraphQL resolvers. And I really like those projects, and I think they look really cool. But I'm waiting on them to get developed a little bit more before I actually use them. And so in the time being, I'm just using this as kind of a monkey patch / it's fine for the time being. So to use this, we're going to first start off with installing it. So here are the different things we can install on their main README. So the one we're going to be using is from a schema, and then this is how you actually use it. So we're going to say yarn add that. And now I want to move this into its own utility. So we can just call this, because we don't really need to put all this in start server anyway. So in utils, I'm going to create a file called generate schema.ts, and we're going to export a function called gen schema. And from this, we're just going to return the stitched schema, which is all this stuff right here. And then we also want to do merge, and we're going to merge the schema over here. And you'll see also the advantage to moving this into its own function that we're going to get in just a second. So schema, and I'm going to call it gen schema to grab that. And I just need to import a couple of these guys. So I guess all these things right here. And this also declutters our start server now. It's a little bit smaller, and that's pretty nice. Okay, so in gen schema over here, we might need to change the dir name, because we're now inside of utils, and we might have to go up a folder. So I'm going to say up one here, up one here, up one here, because we're currently in utils. So I'm just going to do yarn test, and we'll see it and make sure this code does still work and that we didn't just break how you create the schema. Now if this does work, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder called scripts. Okay, nice. So it did go ahead and work still, so I'm just going to Control C out. So in scripts, I'm going to say create types.ts, and in create types, I'm going to import this stuff right here, and we're just going to do this. So we're going to use the generate namespace, and in here I'm basically going to say, and we're just going to have this as one big function, or one We're going to call this with TS node, so it's going to be like kind of like a script. So that's why I made a folder called scripts inside of that. So create types, what we're going to do is first generate the schema. So we're going to call utils, and we can just copy this, oops, and pass gen schema in there. And then from that, we're going to do fs.write. There we go. And here you have to specify what file to write, or the namespace for this. So the namespace, and what we just need multiple arguments for generate namespace. I'm just going to go back. I think when I tried to do this all in one go, it was just a bad idea. So let's get rid of this. So first we need to generate our namespace. What this namespace garbage is this. So it's just going to output a string. So if we look at this, it should output a string at the end. I guess it did. Here we go. That's the final. I was looking for this. So very end, we're just going to get a string, which we could just say TypeScript types. So generate that, and I'm going to call it GQL, gen schema. Alright, so now I'm going to write the file, passing in TypeScript types, and we're going to write this to up a directory types /schema.d.ts, and that's it. And let's see what it doesn't like. So we need to have 3 to 4 arguments, but got 2 for a write file. I think it just wants a callback at the very last one here. So we don't really want to do anything in this callback. Error. Oops. I forget what's first. Does it tell me? So third option. We'll just call it A and B. Okay. And we can console log A, console log B. Doesn't like it? It doesn't want it. I don't know what we're supposed to pass as the third parameter to this. Alright, so let's actually just peek the definition. I should have done this a while ago. This would be the easiest way to do this. And actually, instead of peek, I'm going to go to definition. Alright, so this is the TypeScript definition. So it wants a path, which we provided it, options, and then what's the last thing? A callback, which only includes the error. Okay. So error, and we can console.log the error. Alright, perfect. So we're pretty much done with this now, and then in package.json, I just want to call this. So instead of using this right here, we're just going to say ts node, and we're going to call source/scripts/create types.ts. So yarn gen, and what did I call it? Gen schema types. And we'll see if that works. And I guess we can look at schema.d.ts. No such file or directory. Oh, I also misspelled schema. And I bet this is going to be the same thing that we got before with problems with the path. So we solved that in our gen schema over here by using path and doing path.join with the directory name. So let's do that as well. Let's close some of these. We have enough files open. Okay, so path.join. And here's the directory name. Okay, we'll import that, and let's give it another go. So this is why I wanted to move gen schema to its own little file. So now we can call gen schema like this. in multiple places if we need to. And alright, so we created the new types. And okay, this is me misspelling it. I forgot to change the spelling. And we can run that again. Okay, so we can now generate the types for our entire schema by first stitching it together and then just calling generate namespace on it. And we're good to go. So then as we add stuff to our login resolver or whatnot, we can then generate the types and have that for that. So that's what we'll be doing next video, is working on login. That's it for now. Thank you guys for watching.